The Bitcoin Group, the American original, is filmed in front of a live studio audience for over the last 10 seconds. The sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. Today's episode is brought to you by V8 and Twinkies. We'd like to welcome our panelists, including Chris Ellis from Feathercoin, currently filming himself. Megan Lords from Bitcoin, Not Bombs.
Davi
Barker from ShinyBadges.com.
How's it going?
Christoph Atlas from Anonymous Bitcoin Book. Blake Anderson from Facebook.com/GotBlake. Will Penguin from Bitcoin Milwaukee.
Hi.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from Mad Bitcoins. Issue 1. Looking for the screen share button. Not finding it. Now it's scrolling forever. Privatize the pound and replace it with Bitcoin, says free market think tank. How am I going to read the script while I'm looking at the article? This is not going to work. Old-fashioned legacy money has no competitive advantage with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is simply better money. It's easier to send, easier to divide, requires no physical printing. It's just plain better. What do you think of the think tank's plan? Chris Ellis.
I think it's a pretty silly idea. I don't know who came up with this or whether it was a publicity stunt or whether anyone was on it. On that article that you quoted from The Guardian, you should definitely scroll down to the comments at the bottom because that's where a lot of people raised some really, really sensible points. The analogy that the author made to things like British Gas and British Telecom, which were privatized in the 90s in the UK, are not very good examples of this because Bitcoin isn't really a privatized currency, right? Like it's everyone's currency, everyone owns it. So none of those metaphors are going to work. And also, it's because it's got such a low trading volume, it would be easy as hell for anyone to manipulate a whole nation state's currency just by putting a few $1 million onto the exchange. So I think it's quite a reckless idea. I like where they're coming from. And I definitely think like somewhere like Tuvalu or somewhere really, really small could probably experiment with something like that, as long as they ease themselves in slowly. But I don't think it's a good, I think it's a good headline. I think it worked very well for The Guardian. They clearly got a lot of click-throughs and a lot of controversy, but I don't think it's a very sensible idea.
Megan Lords.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm taking it super seriously either. I don't think this is the way to get, you can't force mass adoption with Bitcoin. Just because you're putting this idea out there, we need to make, Bitcoin the currency, a privatized pound. I don't really think it's serious. Like Chris said, it's a good headline, but I don't know that he was all that serious about it. So.
Davi Barker on the same camera.
In the same room even.
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, something that we've seen with Bitcoin is that it makes a global economy, right? And so if, like, Russia or China do something significant to the Bitcoin space, like some regulatory nightmare happens and people all panic, that affects my wallet, even though I'm just a guy selling merchandise off of a table. So if a country decided that they were going to use Bitcoin as their national currency, they're just opening themselves up to financial attack by every other country. Right, because let's say, for example, that this went through. Immediately, that country's enemies are going to start creating regulatory regimes that are hostile to Bitcoin, that manipulate or panic the price. I mean, governments can't deal with currency fluctuations now, and they're like these slow Titanic sinking currencies, and they're still too volatile for an economy. So if a national economy was dealing with the volatility of Bitcoin, it just sounds like a disaster to me.
We're going to go out of order, but in order on the computer. Christoph Atlas.
Yeah, so of course, no modern government is going to adopt Bitcoin as their national currency. 100% of national governments at this point are based on the ability to inflate their national currency. They would have to shut down, approximately 99% of the government, and it would have to retain a specific size in order for them to have a deflationary cryptocurrency of this kind, where the amount of coins that are ever going to exist is fixed and completely predictable to everyone. So that's simply never going to happen. Bitcoin and governments are oil and water, and what I expect to happen in the long run is that Bitcoin will simply replace governments, and we will find other forms of governance and finding ways for humans to cooperate that's more peaceful.
Blake Anderson.
Yeah, I think that it's a top-down planning, and Bitcoin are kind of mutually exclusive. It's decentralized by nature on purpose to make it so that we can build it from the ground up in the right way, and trying to get some kind of top-down situation working through a pound to pull on the heartstrings just seems kind of irritating to me.
Will Penguin.
Yeah,
I think it's well intended where the folks are coming from. Certainly good. I think it's good to have the discussion, good to put it out there. But the question of privatization is kind of an old way of thinking. I think that Bitcoin and these blockchain technologies are bringing us to a new paradigm, a new way of thinking about organization, social organization. So to say that Bitcoin could be private or public, I think both are false. Megan, I think you said Bitcoins are for everybody. If something's public, it doesn't mean it's for everybody. It means it's for the government. And if it's something's private, it means it's something personal, or a company owns it. So neither of those things are able to contain or classify and encompass Bitcoin.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and disagree with everyone here. I think this article is fantastic. I think it is the only way to save the pound. And I think in the future people will look back on this and they'll be like, why didn't they do that? Why didn't they try to save the pound? All these cryptocurrencies came out of nowhere, destroyed all of our national currencies, all of them gone. The pound could have survived. The pound had a plan. It could have been a cryptocurrency. You guys aren't looking at this enough. If the CD had come along and said, hey, let's merge with MP3, they could have saved the CD. We could have bought MP3 CDs with 10 discs apiece on them back in the day, and people would have said, wow, the CD is an incredible format. 10 albums on a disc, and I could get to my computer. It's fantastic. Exit question. Which country will create a private version of Bitcoin to replace their national currency first? Chris Ellis.
I disagree with the premise. We should get rid of the nation states together, and then it's a moot point.
Megan Lawrence.
Oh wow, that was great. I'm gonna have to agree with Chris on that one. I don't really know. I don't really care.
Davi Barker.
It's obvious. It's Somalia. They have the communications infrastructure. They have they have pirates. It's already a data haven. I mean, obviously Somalia will be the first national cryptocurrency.
You're here. We'd also accept Kenya with M-Pesa. Christoph Atlas.
Well, if it was Britain, they'd have to kick the Queen out on her ass. They'd have to foreclose on the palace and sell all her gold and her corgis, and it would just be.
Anymore. We sold those off at a bargain basement price.
Oh, okay. Well, she does have corgis, I know, so they'd have to get rid of they'd have to stop marrying off to inbreds, and it would be a sad day for England, I think.
I know the Queen's face is rather large, but they could still fit the Queen's face on a Bitcoin, right? Oh, it's gone to the umbrella.
The corgi going into the pound. We killed the
The real question is, how many Bitcoins fit on the face of the Queen?
21 million.
Good answer. Which country will go first? Blake.
That's a weird question. I don't even know how to start to answer that. I think that they're mutually exclusive. I mean, like, we can have something other than Bitcoin with all kinds of free mining and airdrop and stuff like that, but without something that fundamentally violates what Bitcoin is, I don't think it does that.
Not a fan of GovCoin. Will Penguin.
Well, I think we could have lots of nations accepting Bitcoin or integrating cryptocurrencies, like the Nation of Islam, the Nation of Navajo, the Iroquois Nation, the Sioux Nation, Packer Nation, Steeler Nation. All of these nations, the Nation of Israel, all of these nations could easily incorporate cryptocurrency.
I like how you mixed in together the Nation of Islam and Packer Nation. That was eloquent.
Very nice.
Moving on, issue 2. Almost got it. List of possible Silk Road bidders leaked by U.S. Marshals. The U.S. Marshals Service apparently doesn't know the difference between CC and BCC. Therefore, we have a list of everyone who contacted them inquiring about the bidding. A professor, a musician, Second Market, Coinbase, and no sign of the Winklevi twins. What do you think of this list, Megan Lords?
So I was wondering what they would do with this whole, you know, selling off the air. I figured they would probably mess up in some way, and this is just kind of hilarious. But provided some really good networking for these people who are looking to bid on the coins. But yeah, I mean, and I expect more things like this to happen. I really don't trust them to competently sell off even these small amounts of Bitcoin. Yeah, I mean, I just so I look forward to the weird little mistakes that are going to keep happening because of just general government incompetence. So.
Wouldn't it be great if they sent 3,000 Bitcoins twice? Wouldn't you just
I love that. Yeah. It's like, oh, we sent it to the wrong address. Can you send it back?
I'm having a hard time sending that back. Just give me a few more days.
Yeah, right.
Davi Barker.
So I have to wonder whether or not we're not looking at a list of people who are potentially accomplices in a crime. Because everything the government has was stolen, and these are people who are obviously interested in stealing or in purchasing stolen property. So I would kind of like to look through the list and see if there are any friends of mine there or businesses that I might not want to do business with anymore.
Christoph Atlas.
I have mixed feelings on this. So as Davi mentioned, these are stolen funds. I don't think that we could ever really get them back to their rightful owners because they're on this kind of anonymity network and they have pseudonyms. The site has been shut down since then. Like that would be quite an engineering feat to get the funds back to the original owners. On the other hand, John Montanus recently pointed out that this is, in a sense, quite a victory for the fungibility of Bitcoin, because what the U.S. government is saying implicitly is we respect Bitcoin as a legitimate currency, as something that has value that we can sell off, and not only that, but funds that were taken directly from the Silk Road we're saying are valuable to other people, and this kind of flies in the face of kind of the coin validation schemes and so forth. This idea that if coins ever touch the Silk Road, then they're going to be haunted and no one's going to want to accept them. And the U.S. Marshals are saying, nope, these are good, perfectly good Bitcoins. We're going to sell them for market value. And in that sense, it is kind of a victory for fungibility, and that's a silver lining in the story.
Blake Anderson.
Yeah, it's interesting to me to see a government say, we're going to tax Bitcoin. And then it's like, well, you're aware that there can be a new ledger entry for every single transaction. That is a giant circle of growing in every single direction. I mean, Coinbase alone is hard-coded or coded so that a new address is generated for every single transaction, meaning to me that Coinbase in and of itself is making enough convoluted activity that makes, auditing a nightmare. So when the government says that they're going to audit Bitcoin, which is what they're implying when they say they're going to tax it, and then they can't handle ubiquitous email technology correctly with the U.S. Marshals Office, which is in charge of witness protection, that just, blew the cover of 40 or 50 people. So it's just, the entire thing to me seems to be like, we're the masters of the universe. We can't spell our own name, but ignore that. But we're gonna figure it all out.
Just makes you really excited to go into the witness protection program, right?
Yeah, no kidding. My gosh.
We're incredibly fortunate. The list of bidders, not a list of spies that went out, but we'll hang on for the spy list next time. Will Pangman.
Yeah, I'd be incensed if I was a person who had inquired and this list came out. It's just more proof you can't trust these guys, to even tie their own shoes or cross all their T's and dot all their I's. You're gonna be outed, whether it's witness protection or a secret bidding list for suitors for some bitcoins, auctioned by the FBI. It is a victory for Bitcoin. The Silk Road bust in many ways was a victory for Bitcoin, and that they acknowledged through the seizure of these assets, that it was valuable, was a victory for Bitcoin. And we live in a parasitic system, so there will be some victims, unfortunately. There will be some martyrs, unfortunately, and hopefully we can reduce that number dramatically. And avoid a lot of that. The quicker we get to full acceptance of this technology, the fewer martyrs there will have to be, and so on. The less resistance that is faced toward the adoption, the fewer martyrs, which is all good. So we're all working towards that. And right now, it's unfortunate that there's someone, held in solitary whose, property was stolen by these this gang, So it's a good thing. It's all a good thing. It's sad that this has to hurt people along the way, but the closer we get to adoption of technologies like Bitcoin, the closer we'll get to more peaceful interactions, more decentralized authority, and that's all good, and that will lead to less violence and fewer martyrs eventually. So we just have to shepherd as best we can these situations, everything that's at our fingertips. Those of you watching, all of us here sitting around, everyone here in D.C. at this conference, we all have a huge responsibility.
Well, and remember, the worst thing the government could have done was refuse to sell the Bitcoins. They could have said these are trinkets and they have no value, and we're just going to store them.
Or burn them.
Or burn them. Exit question. If you had the money, would you buy the Silk Road Bitcoins? What would you do with them if you did? Chris Ellis.
Oh, I didn't answer it the first time around.
Oh.
Well, actually, everyone made really good points, but all I really wanted to add was that you can't stop information from traveling anymore. Like, it's possible. And a lot of these institutions were set up for a physical reality where you mail things physically to people, and now they're in a digital realm. You wouldn't have been able to make that mistake if you were sending out that information by physical post. So I don't think they could have avoided it. I think it's actually good for the pricing, the sentiment to the market. I think it's good that everyone knows, what's coming. And what I'd really like to see is whoever actually gets those coins actually does put it back into its fund to help verify the court case. What was the exit question?
That's a good answer to it. Megan Lords, what would you do with the money?
That's an interesting question. I don't really, like Tommy was saying, I don't really believe in buying stolen property. Similar.
But it's on sale.
But it's on sale. Well, if I had that kind of money, I would just buy Bitcoin from other people that I wanted to support and, actually needed the help. There are a lot of people who only get paid in Bitcoin that need to cash out of it, and I'd rather help a friend load off some Bitcoin than help the government do it. I mean, for the same reason, so there's an oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico a few years ago, and a bunch of people in the Panhandle got these payouts by BP, and like ridiculous payouts. I knew servers getting like $30,000 checks and stuff, but I didn't want any of it because it's blood money to me as far as I'm concerned. So.
Davi Barker, no blood money for oil?
So freedom is free, but justice isn't. And justice in this case has a price, and it is the spot value of Bitcoin. If I had the money to purchase this Bitcoin, my first thought was also to give it to Ross Ulbricht or freeross.org or the Ross Ulbricht Defense Fund, who is the alleged Dread Pirate Roberts. But then it occurred to me that I don't know for sure that it is his Bitcoin, and that is something that hasn't really been verified or proven yet. And so I think that I would take the Bitcoin and get together with somebody who understood blockchain forensics better than me and put it up for somebody who could somehow, using the blockchain, verify that they were the Dread Pirate Roberts, and then through some sort of darknet encrypted channel return it to him.
I think they belonged to the customers on the site. So these were the coins that were on the servers at the time. So they wouldn't have been his, I don't think.
Okay. Well, then the same thing. I would try to actually, rather than using the justice system, quote unquote, I would try to use the blockchain forensics to return it to who could claim it rightfully.
Christoph, Atlas.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. So I guess if they're selling stolen Bitcoins for a discount, that kind of makes them like the guy selling bootleg DVDs out of the back of a car. I look forward to the day when the FBI is doing that on a full-time basis, where they simply try to steal Bitcoins from other people and sell them out of the back of a car. I think that will be a very productive use of their time relative to what they're doing now.
I would have jumped to the defense of the bootlegger. There's no natural crime involved in creating a bootleg DVD and selling it out of the back of a car. That's an entrepreneur. He's doing honest work. Government is completely different.
Fair enough.
I agree with what you said, but I agree with that too, as far as it's funny that it's so much worse than what the government is doing because they have taken away the original instead of making a copy. And I mean, I guess if I had the opportunity to buy coins on sale that I knew were stolen, if I did that, I think it would illustrate that I don't really understand Bitcoin and what's going on and why we're doing all this, so I don't think I would.
Will Pangman.
I think there are lots of worthy reasons to put up a bid on some of these, packages of coins, and whether it's to perform an incredibly intense experiment like Davi described to try and reconstitute these customers of the Silk Road through blockchain forensics. What a daunting task, but that would be, I think a fascinating undertaking. Or Chris's plan to set up a fund for DPR's defense, or maybe just a nonprofit organization as a whole that helps victims of essentially nonviolent criminals who are victims of the drug war. Exactly, yeah. That would be, there's a lot of people who are really innocent too that could be freed with a fund like that too. So there's lots of interesting projects that could happen. I mean, there's good reason to determine for oneself that they would not purchase stolen goods or purchase anything from the government. There's definitely good reason for that. I think there's also many reasonable strategies for putting up a bid and doing some good with it. So I'm interested to see what happens. I know that this list being released definitely stimulated a lot more interest now that other potential buyers know who the early interested buyers are. So there's probably, that could have been, again, part of the plan too. We tend to think government is this big accident problem, tripping over themselves all the time and not getting anything done. Occasionally they're very, very efficient at what they do. Think education. They're very, very efficient in that, and this could be just an interesting marketing approach to stimulate more interest in this package. So
it's going to be a great sale. Moving on, issue 3. Bitcoin security firm BitGo raises $12 million. BitGo, creators of the first available multi-signature wallet, just scored $12 million in venture capital, including investments from celebrity super investor Ashton Kutcher. What are you more excited about, the multi-signature wallet or the seemingly unending flow of venture capital into Bitcoin? Davi Barker.
Wow, you're going to go to me first? Okay. So the question is, what am I more excited about? I guess I don't know enough about this project in particular. I do like the idea that there is a lot of venture capital in the Bitcoin space because that means we're going to see other kinds of innovation happening. But I mean, a multi-signature wallet is a big deal. So I'll take the wild card on the venture capital.
Christoph, Atlas.
It is hugely important that we continue to build tools that can help us protect our funds. We are moving to a completely new paradigm for money. A lot of that revolves around people being their own bankers, but leaving all of that responsibility and the intricacies and the technical know-how up to the average person is just not, it's not a reasonable expectation. So we need tools for everyone to, get their coins secured, and I really do think that's a hugely important project. I don't want people to get into the Bitcoin space simply to have their coins taken away through some malware infection or whatever. To me, that's hugely disappointing to see. And this is something I care about a lot. So I hope that they do a good job with the product. I don't know about anything about the details of it. I'd love to find more out about it.
Blake Anderson.
I'm just really excited to talk about Ashton Kutcher. So that's what I want to talk about because he is dreamy and a half. I'm really excited that he's investing in Bitcoin because of the way that he looks and the way that he sounds when he talks.
Somebody's trying to get a job. Will Pangman.
Yeah, BitGo's awesome. I'm a customer. I like it. I'm excited for more feature rollouts and things like that, and maybe even stashing greater amounts in there. Yeah, multi-signature is a huge step in the right direction for the average user of computers, not just the average Bitcoin user. And it still gives you full control over your private keys. You can get really creative with how you secure them now, and yeah, it's awesome. We need to see tools like this. They need some more competitors so that more innovation can go faster, and it's great. They're coming to market at the right time. I was hearing a few months back that Bitcoin-related apps that people were thinking of that would make Bitcoin and cryptocurrency more user-friendly were too ahead of their time, when I would talk about them with people or in tech circles, and I disagreed, and I'm really glad to feel somewhat vindicated in that disagreement, because these things are a little over everyone's head, but they are actually going to make things a lot easier for the average user, and that's great. So, go BitGo, keep going. Go BitGo, go.
And all thanks to Kelso from That 70s Show. Chris Ellis.
I really like the technology. There are lots of other companies that are also doing this, and this became necessary after the MTGOX fiasco. What they did was it actually provided people an incentive to get their heads down and actually do some real work. And what I really like about it is that you can have 3 keys in all different spaces. You can have 1 key on the cloud with the provider. You can have 1 key locally, and you can have another key somewhere else, held with someone else. And you need 2 of those 3 in order to spend a transaction. I think it's really exciting. I want to see more of this. Something interesting in the article is that they said they had some kind of patent or some kind of secret source of theirs. So I'd be really, really keen to see what they're going to do. But there are some other companies, also one called Multisig Plus, I think, that's coming out. And actually, if you look at their share prices, the ones that are floating, since this has happened, all the share prices have gone up because everyone's expecting there to be, some big investment on the way. So I'm really excited about it.
What do you guys think about this like Ryan Singer and what is the Crypto Corp? Have you guys heard of that initiative at all? Sounds very similar.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm excited about both. I'm excited about that.
One other interesting thing about BitGo is, in looking at a lot of these early movers in these markets, I see lots of these companies that started kind of with a consumer-facing approach, and they're going more enterprise. And I can see that as a track for BitGo as well. Institutional money is concerned about thumb drives and paper, these kinds of other offline security measures for Bitcoin. They have good reason to have concerns about those methods, and BitGo and services like it can ameliorate a lot of those concerns. So 8, 9, 10 figures in Bitcoin may not be too far off.
Megan Lors.
Sorry, Blake Hyde was a cooler character on That 70s Show.
I'll give you that.
But I think security, that's one of the biggest barriers between mainstream adoption of Bitcoin right now. People, I think people are very interested in it. They really want to get involved more, but they don't have the knowledge to secure their wallets, or they're not able to for certain reasons. Maybe they have a hard time finding the information or understanding it, and so we need these solutions that are going to make it easy for just your average people, and that's what I'm more excited about. That's great that venture capitalists are putting a lot of money into these projects, but I'm really more excited about the innovation that's coming, and all of the. And I need to look more into this specific company, but I'm also excited about the competition that we're going to see too, to make these products easy to use for everyone.
I'll just do it again. Yay! Yay! The Bitcoin Group is being broadcast live on World Crypto Network. And did you know I might have been muted? Chris Ellis and Mad Bitcoins are touring America, and you can help. Donate and they'll travel further, eat more Twinkies, and drink more V8. So far, we've raised more than 3.35 Bitcoins. And the screen is going all in infinite tunneling. And the more you raise, the more we'll travel. So the more videos of Chris Ellis in America you'll see eating Twinkies thanks to your donations and Bitcoin.
And the more professional the videos will get, the more Bitcoins we get. So it's worth donating.
I don't know about that.
Where's Chris Ellis going to end up next, Tom?
It's a lot of promising the more professional the videos will get. I'm still worried about that one. Issue 4, Bitcoin to be the new title sponsor on St. Petersburg Bowl. The Bitcoin Bowl. Bitcoin and football together at last. BitPay has just announced a sponsorship deal with the St. Petersburg Bowl. This is the same exact words. The Bitcoin Bowl. Will it be just as exciting as the Doge car or more exciting? Let's go to Christoph Atlas. Try to get his infinite screen off my screen.
All right, so this reminds me of the Doge car race, right? And it gives you a little bit.
Football fan, you're converting, going over.
No, I mean, maybe I'll watch one thing because it's Bitcoin sponsored, but I mean, it gives me some perspective, right? Because I was all excited, yeah, Dogecoin, they've sponsored this driver, got a lot of attention, and then just one company in Bitcoin is able to duplicate their efforts, and it gives you like a sense of perspective of just how far above Bitcoin is with these other altcoins. And you know, I've been following the altcoin space for a while now on my show. And so you have like Bitcoin way up there in the stratosphere. We get all concerned and like, oh, the price is kind of low right now, right? But it's like the first cryptocurrency problems, right? Because then you have Litecoin way below that, still hugely above the rest of the pack. And I think that we'll probably see, it will probably be like this for a long time to come, that we'll have this one cryptocurrency that is just so massive that even just one company in the space can accomplish what a single altcoin can. And I think that's interesting to think about.
Blake Anderson, are you excited about the Bitcoin Bowl and Bitcoin and football?
I'm not a huge fan of breaded circuit. I think that ubiquity is good, so I'm all for it.
Let the lions eat the Christians. That's what they used to say. Will Penman.
Yeah, this is great. You know, ESPN and BitPay got together to make this happen. They outbid Beef O'Brady's, which used to have this bowl game.
Going down, Beef O'Brady's. You're going down.
Yeah, for folks who don't know what that is, it's a chain of restaurants in Florida, kind of like your chicken wings and brew pub, mediocre. I would have to agree with Megan on that, but they don't. And that's, yeah, no, this is the most popular sport in America by a large margin. It's the most popular college sport in America as well. This is huge visibility. This is really great. It'll be echoed constantly ad nauseum on all the sports commentating shows throughout the fall and around the holiday time, which is when this bowl game takes place. So as Blake said, ubiquity is good. And this is good for bringing Bitcoin to a lot more people who would be interested in it or who'll start having a sense of normalization around it if they previously were averse to it because of its association with, say, the Silk Road or who knows, or fraud or, you know, Mt. Gox, whatever it might be. You know, they'll see this bowl game and be like, oh, Bitcoin must still be kicking butt and it's at least still around. I'll take a second look or a third look. So, yeah, and again, Bitcoin doesn't care. It will stick around. It will be here when you want to take your fifth look and finally come around. So, yeah, the bowl game's awesome. Bitcoin in sports is a no-brainer. You saw that earlier this year with the college kid who raised $24,000 by holding up a QR code on NFL, or rather ESPN Game Day for college athletics. So it's a logical progression. It's really exciting.
I don't think I can get my QR code up that fast. But Will's right. All of the announcers of all of the sports shows will be making fun of Bitcoin when this comes around. Even Keith Olbermann, who wears a jacket much like this. Chris Ellis.
I think that it's very, very difficult to stay relevant as an altcoin. And I say that as someone who's experienced in setting one up. One of the objectives we had at Feathercoin was to see if we could lay down a template of how to bootstrap a local cryptocurrency when all the vulnerabilities were known. Right. So now that we've already got this the technology established, we didn't want to invent anything new, but we thought, like, what would happen if once all the hackers knew what to do with a young coin with low hash rate? How would they respond to it? And of course, we found out because we had loads and loads of attacks. But the reputation still stayed strong because everyone kept on turning up to work. And I think what's happening now, particularly with Litecoin and Dogecoin, is that it's not just the prices are tanking, it's that there's no volume on the exchanges whatsoever. People have just suffered from ennui now. They're just bored of it. And so you have all these kind of PR campaigns, and my concern is that we're doing too much publicity and we're out of step with the development. And what people really need to be doing is they need to be actually, even if you don't want to code, at least be intelligent about how the technology works underneath, so that you can make other people smart about it too. Rather than just kind of doing all these kind of publicity stunts. Because I think the way this comes across to regular members of the public, when they see something like this, that it doesn't really register in their minds. I don't think they look at that and go, wow, this is such a great thing. I think they look at that and go, it's PR stuff. I think it kind of undermines in the long run. Stephanie and Brian were talking about this on the Sex and the Science Hour about 3 episodes ago, where they said, this whole thing with the startup, the problem with startup culture that's pervasive now around Bitcoin is that's now the new China, right? So this what everyone's trying to say now is oh, this is why you should buy, because a whole bunch of rich people are going to buy after you. But the problem is, if you know how startup culture works, the way it works is you set up a company so that you can sell to a bigger company, and then it all becomes about database wrapping, right? You get a database, you get people to populate it, you make it look pretty on the outside, so they log in and they start populating that database, and then the data becomes the oil that you then sell on to somebody else further on down the line. I thought the whole point of Bitcoin was that everyone owned that data now, that you didn't have a single database stored on a private server that you would then sell out to the highest bidder later on, and you'd make people sign these contracts of adhesion that nobody ever reads when they first log into a service, and then you can change at will any time you like. I thought the point was that you had digital scarcity, a distributed database of information that nobody can falsify, and I think we're kind of losing that slightly.
Yeah, so all sport ball kind of sounds and looks the same to me, but I think this is great because it's bringing Bitcoin to a larger audience, but we really need to focus on the security aspects of it before, and that's, assuming that people are going to be seeing Bitcoin, hearing these commentators talking about it a lot, and actually look into it in the first place, which is not always the case. The more they hear this word out there, it plants these little seeds in their mind, and hopefully they're going to go check that out. But they need to be prepared, and there needs to be things out there that makes it an easy transition and something that they can understand very clearly and have a foundational understanding of, and protect themselves if they do make that choice to get into it.
Christoph, Atlas.
Yeah, I thought I started with you. We're moving on. Does anyone else? Davi? All right.
I want to respond to Chris.
All right.
So it's a little hard for me to comment on this because I go out of my way not to retain information about sports. I use that memory for other things, but
waste.
Maybe you guys have heard of power balance bracelets. Have you ever heard of these things? Maybe you've seen late night infomercials. There you go. See, I'm glad I stored that information in someone else's brain. So there are these bracelets that there's these late night commercials, and they put them on, they push someone over, then they put it on. Oh yeah, I feel like I feel sturdier. Total scam, right? It's like ionized unobtainium or something. They sponsored, what was it? I didn't even retain it that long. Says Sacramento. They sponsored a stadium, and so it was called Power Balance Stadium, and sports were played there. And I don't think anybody went out and bought a Power Balance bracelet because this stadium was named after it. So there was recently a stadium built in my hometown. I'm in Santa Clara, California, and it's destroyed traffic, and it's going to destroy the budget, destroy the economy of the area, and it's going to be noisy, and it's going to disrupt all of our local public transit. And I, as a person who isn't interested in sports, if the first thing that I knew was that stadium was sponsored by Bitcoin, it put a bad taste in my mouth. So I don't care. I'm not interested in sports. And it's I want more people to adopt Bitcoin. I want people to use it. I want people to learn about it. I don't want them to do it because an athlete told them to, right? That's not the constituency that I want, and they're not going to be using it for intelligent reasons, and it's not going to benefit them if they don't know why it's valuable.
And I'm wondering if we're reaching a peak where people are sick of just all of this advertising that's inundating us too.
But it's not even advertising, it's advertorial. So these are adverts masquerading as editorials.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah, the one response I wanted to to Chris's point, let me unmute myself here.
I guess starting with Davi's point, there are some really tragic branding attempts, that companies do. If you're a company with a crap product that's relying on gimmicks and swindling, then any kind of naming licensing or whatever is going to make a consumer who's knowledgeable feel exactly like you articulated. But then there are other campaigns, like Got Milk comes to mind, that are relatively inert, and they haven't really gotten in people's way in terms of like naming a stadium that was funded through taxpayers, through coercion, through taxing the local public, and then also disrupting eminent domain or traffic issues or any of those things. So I do think that there are clever naming opportunities for brands, and Bitcoin as a brand can do that. BitPay or other companies should be doing that. It's definitely a good idea for visibility. I mean, BitPay is probably the leading merchant processor, even though it's got some big competitors in the world, and it's gaining steam all the time. They're growing constantly, and they're very well-run company. I think we all would probably agree, any of us who've used the services, and yeah, their growth is something to cheerlead for all of us. So that's the reason I was behind it. The thing about not as to Chris's point, having like Bitcoin has had a PR problem, and Dogecoin has set many good examples with the car and many other things. The bigger problem, I think Chris is right. Supporting development of the core technology has been hotly discussed lately in past months, and certainly needs more attention. And there's a lot of creative talk right now on forums and in certain mailing lists I'm a part of about what to do to pay developers better and encourage that and incentivize, create better incentives, which is really exciting stuff that people are thinking about that. It may not be popping up as clearly as like press releases and these big branding opportunities or but these things build steam around everything. It's kind of like a chicken and the egg thing. I don't know how we can get what we need bootstrapping Bitcoin as a whole, thinking of it like that. We're still in the baby days. We're still in the early stages. So yeah, it's a chicken and the egg thing. We need the PR, which has suffered in the past, and we also need to nurture the development of the core technology, which is suffering now. So yeah, it's a tightrope walk.
All right, moving on to questions and answers. And we'll have some Jay says, wow, this looks great, you guys. Bitcoin history here. And James M says, who needs the foundation? We have the group right here. We also have a lot of comments on the mutes. We're trying to stay muted. We're trying to get the sound right for this live show. It might not be working that well. James M has a question. So I guess if you deposited into the Silk Road, you didn't have the keys. I'd like to know more how it worked. I think the Silk Road worked like Mt. Gox, where they had an internal system that was handling the Bitcoin. So you would deposit your Bitcoins, essentially lose your keys. Then you would gain Silk Road Bitcoins, which you would trade like tokens, and then you would take those out the other side the same way the Mt. Gox were, a off blockchain type system.
Yeah, so Gox was a bank failure, Silk Road was a bank shutdown.
Yep. Let's see what else we got. Other questions. I think we got a good question for Will here. What's the best way to approach a local business in regards to getting them to start accepting Bitcoin from an implementer's point of view? Formal introduction, business cards, casual conversation, follow-up time, certain types of businesses. Will, tell us about local businesses.
So I think first it starts with you got to have some presentation skills. So if you have a little bit of a sales background, even if you had a small business or were a paper boy or anything entrepreneurial, that helps a lot. You need to have a little bit of presentation skills, so you know how to handle objections and you know how to maintain, gain trust and maintain attention. That's the basic stuff, because those things are important because Bitcoin is so fringe still seeming, I guess, and also complicated to understand. So that stuff is really important. What works for me is just being spontaneous. If you're walking down the street, the door's open, it's off hours. Like sometimes, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago I was walking down the street, it was like 2 p.m. There's this nightclub that I know is not open at 2 p.m. on a weekday. They open at 5 or 6 or whatever. But the door was open. I walked in, I figured the manager was in there or someone was in there, some authority for the establishment, and I just mention that I know of a local meetup in town. We'd like to host an event here. Do you accept Bitcoin? What do you know about it? What can I tell you about it? And that went really well. So we ended up holding an event there, and they accept Bitcoin now. So be spontaneous. Make sure you're knowledgeable. The person asking the question said something about integration. If you are an affiliate partner with some of these merchant processing companies, Coinbase, GoCoin, BitPay, then make sure you know your stuff so that when it's prime time and the owner or proprietor of the business is ready to get signed up and get integrated, that you know how to do it. You can do this with friends, or like one way I did early on, about a little over a year ago with BitPay, was I wanted to sell something in the farmers market, so I created a company, and you have some time to actually like register with the state. Register your company with the state. If it's not profitable, you don't have to, and you don't have to go through the trouble. So just create a company and make that a merchant account, and practice selling one good to yourself using BitPay. Figure out how it works, in that way. Those are good strategies. Most importantly, have a group of people who will go with you. We talked on the show before about setting up little bit mobs where you take your meetup or your local Bitcoin group, and just 5 of you, 20 of you walk up and down the strip. Yeah, it's exactly it. It's a flash mob or a human DDoS. I love that. It's and you walk in and you politely say, hey, if you accept Bitcoin today, like right now, I'll help you do it. All of us will patronize your business. And if they can't okay that, or they don't want to, then
human PDOS.
Yeah, then you just walk next door to the next one, which is nice because usually you don't have to go too many doors down to get one of these companies to agree with you, and then all the other employees that you were just in are going and looking through the window and stuff. I mean, this happens. So
can I just make a quick point as well? Switch mics. Which is that I was really interested recently to see an article by a chap called Martin Armstrong, which is on armstrongeconomics.com. Let me just see if I can get that up on the screen view. I think one of the ways you can get this integrated into local businesses is by understanding their needs first and foremost. And so for what I'm really excited about, his headline is, again, just link bait. Google the new bank, roll over Bitcoin, and banks it's time for the internet revolution. And his basic point is that Facebook and Google are applying for banking licenses. And so the idea here being that they're going to usurp Bitcoin because they're just going to get in there with fiat. So you'll be able to use your regular currency, your fiat currency, with all the convenience that you get with Bitcoin digitally with your phone. You'll just be able to go in there and tap that without any of the volatility or any of the other teething problems that Bitcoin allegedly has. I think what's more exciting, and perhaps in this article he doesn't spend enough time on, is the idea that this will give people currency choice. So now I think people are very good at recognizing authenticity in other people, and that's why I think that a lot of these PR things don't work, because I think a lot of people see through the advertorial. I think they know when they're being sold to. That's what went wrong with Google, remember, in the early days. When they didn't signal to people what was advertising and what was organic search results, they got into a lot of trouble for that. And I think they were sued, I think, by Idea Lab. I don't want to get into any trouble, but I think there was some tension there, because then they started making all the commercial links green. And that was really, really important. And so I think once you start to get something like Google Wallet that everyone has and is ubiquitous, then the public and the market can decide which currency is the best currency to go with. And you won't have this problem anymore of like, well, how do I sell this? Because you're not really selling somebody anything. Like, you're trying to say, like, this is an experiment. We believe this, and we'd like you to believe it too, but why don't you try? And these are the problems I think it will address.
Can I comment on that really quick?
Mm-hmm.
My main source of concern for something like that is we continue to adopt these digital storage of value kind of systems, and we decrease the amount of lag time that there is in human action, and the instantiation of our ideas happens faster and faster. I don't trust companies like Google to be able to centrally plan that level of complexity. So I think that you're right, that there will be this kind of period wherein they do help ubiquity by having people understand what's going on. But if people were concerned about long-term damage to the network, I don't know that Google, no matter how much money they have, is going to be physically capable of managing all the complexity that's being engendered as a result of human action being so much faster as a result of these new technologies. I mean, Bitcoin is 432 times faster, at least with a worst-case scenario, than legacy banking. So And it
In
makes
terms of volume of transactions?
no. It's like let's say you have a 72-hour bank hold versus instant or 10-minute transaction. So you take the 10-minute transaction versus the 72-hour bank period, and that's at 432 times.
Can I point out the gorilla in the room here? The NSA. The NSA can subpoena records from Google or Facebook, and if that's your financial records, then I mean that's pretty much everything. When it comes to like Bitcoin, you have this opportunity to sort of plan your level of anonymity and to sort of, you know what I mean? So, I mean, when the NSA is like their motto is capture everything, right, or collect everything, they actually have a motto like this.
I think that's Pokemon.
No, no, but literally, like. If you look at some of the recently leaked NSA documents, the slogan of some of the programs is "collect everything." Yeah. Right, and so
That's theft. That's Nintendo's.
Okay, well, you know, they're not subject to those sorts of rules. They're exempt from intellectual property because all intellectual property is their intellectual property. So,
Megan stole mine earlier with her answer. I was going to see her in decentralized court.
There is a growing skepticism of things like Google and Facebook when it comes to online privacy, when it comes to internet regulations and things like that. And if it looks like Facebook and Google are going to be compliant with these things, or even if it's going to be a risk, I mean, there are people that boycott these big firms and find alternatives. So, I mean, there's always something Bitcoin can do that a centralized firm can't do.
And hopefully, you know, as more leaks come out too, people will realize, like, no, I really don't want Google having access to my financial information because
we should leak the blockchain to the internet.
Leak the blockchain to the
internet. Then someone should distribute the wallet. That provides an incentive for someone to engineer a distributed version of the Google wallet.
Sure.
I wanted to chime in a couple things that I think tie it back together and to the question. You know, I thought of a couple things, whether it's, you know, concerns about the NSA and data collection, or whether it's concerns for the needs of a merchant or the person you're trying to reach to accept Bitcoin. The best way, I think, to start off is to get in a conversation that's friendly so that you can find out what their pet issue is or what really buzzes them, what really like makes them passionate or makes them angry. And as a friend, connect Bitcoin to that for them. And you can do this like in almost any situation. It's why there's funny videos about people proselytizing Bitcoin out there. You know, because you can make all of these issues, you can add Bitcoin to the discussion of all of these social issues, right? And small business owners everywhere have lots and lots of concerns, no matter what their party affiliation or background or anything is. And if you can learn a little bit about that and tie Bitcoin to it as a solution for them, you need to show them that Bitcoin is a solution. That's really what you need to do. And if you explain that well enough, you'll get them to say yes, and you'll get them to meet with you 1 or 2 times, whatever it takes to get their business up and running. You may even need to learn a little bit about their business so you can help them figure out how to train their staff. Because anything you can do to reduce the amount of time burden on these managers of these hospitality establishments, most of the time is what they are, that will make them say yes to you and allow you in back of the house to help them do this. So that's very important too. And then first things first, if there's no local business that accepts Bitcoin, get one and make a big deal out of it and make them happy, make them feel good that they accepted Bitcoin. Once you get that first one and you make a big stink about it, and you know, keep coming back, keep watering your business, your Bitcoin business, like we talked about last week. That's the key. Get one and tell a story. Get them talking to you so you can show that Bitcoin is a solution.
Can I touch on that really quick?
I agree with what you said, and I think that a big part of selling to people is to act like a friend. And if you don't know how to act like a friend, I mean, I can just really tell you, the way that you act like a friend to somebody is you listen to what they say and you reiterate what they've said without straw-manning it, and then you steer the conversation based on what they want to talk about. But if you're having a really hard time with this, the payment card industry charges people through the nose. That's a good place of attack to say, you're paying a lot to have Visa and MasterCard in here. And then if it's a bigger corporation, if you're really going after big fish, PCI DSS, or the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, is extremely expensive and cost prohibitive. So if people can avoid having to do that and still be able to have an e-commerce business and presence, that's big news for certain. That'd be more, we want to tell it to the proprietor than somebody that's just working out front. But if you can get that connection, I think it's a good one.
I guess we should also.
We should talk about Tandoori Nights. In the case of Tandoori Nights, it's a Indian Pakistani food restaurant in sort of Sacramento area. The owner was not on board with Bitcoin, but the owner gave the cashier permission to take Bitcoin. So the cashier is there. He puts out his sign when he's on shift. He's like, I'll take Bitcoin. I'll give you $5 off. And so if you show up when that cashier's on shift, you can pay the cashier. The cashier will put the cash in the till. And then suddenly it's a Bitcoin accepting business because that cashier is willing to take the risk that the owner is not willing to take. And so that's an option when it's mom and pop shops, when it's cash businesses, when it's there are options like that, like farmers markets. That would be easy to do. So if you can find an employee who's enthusiastic, even if the owner's not, sometimes you can open that up as a place for people to go and spend their Bitcoin.
That's rad. I never heard that as a good story. I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, don't give up. Like, keep trying, broker deals like Davi just described, and find someone, whether it's someone in your group who can accept payments from Bitcoin from the rest of the group, and then show the business owner, here's the tab of all these people. They just paid me Bitcoins. You could, benefit from this, and I would be happy to step out as middleman. Broker deals, stay on it, stay optimistic, and relentless. And you can get businesses to test this stuff, especially now that they see Dish Network and more Expedia. I mean, more and more all the time.
Moving on to predictions or story of the week. Chris Ellis, are you ready with a prediction or a story of the week?
Well, it was going to be the one that I just mentioned, but I will actually just highlight the fact that a couple of weeks ago I predicted that the Bitcoin difficulty would remain at below 15% for the second time in a row, because I'd noticed that the mining hash rate dropped very, very suddenly, and we just got back up again. Before each difficulty adjustment. And I think what's happened here is that as some new hardware has come online, the miners, particularly maybe mining on gigahash.io, have wanted to get their best bang for buck on their equipment. And so they have been, my speculation is, I'm not saying I have any evidence for this, is that they have been coordinatingly switching off their miners at certain times so that the hash rate goes below 15% and increase the next time around, and then they will switch on at the right time. And as predicted, it was less than 15%, and now we're just going parabolic because a lot of the new hardware is coming out. So I know that this gigahash thing's been going on and on. I'm not addressing the other points that have been raised already, like in the forums and stuff. I just wanted to point out that I do think that this centralization of hash rate is a serious problem. So no predictions for me this week, just really a clarification of the one that I made last time.
Megan Lords.
I predict that we're going to see the government screwing this deal up some more in the coming weeks as they are selling off these small fragments of Bitcoins. I think that they're going to be making mistakes and doing kind of ridiculous things, and it's going to be funny and kind of sad at the same time.
Davi Barker.
I predict that in the 2016 presidential election, they're going to run one of these debates where they invite YouTube questions, and one of those YouTube questions is going to be about Bitcoin, and we're going to get a blundering answer from Hillary Clinton that is so excellent that it's worth auto-tuning.
Yes.
She's going to win.
Christoph Atlas.
So BitPay is going to sponsor this football team, and Silk Road 2.0 is going to provide all of the performance-enhancing drugs.
It's a great partnership.
Blake Anderson.
I have a prediction. Actually, I had a prediction that was wrong, so let me just curtail off of that. I think that the market cap for Bitcoin should be shrinking, approaching the liquidation of all of these coins, and the fact that it's not is a real illustration of how strong Bitcoin is, that it doesn't continue to shrink its market cap as we approach this giant hurdle of trepidation. Once that's behind us, I don't think it's unreasonable to assume that we're going to see a price run or even a deflationary spiral again.
Will Pegman.
So my prediction is kind of a little fun one, I guess. So last year I attended the Porcupine Freedom Festival in northern New Hampshire, and it's starting 2 days from now. And a lot of us who are here in D.C. are going to head up there and spend the week there camping. Last year, well, I guess I should start 2 years ago, the most used currencies in the vendor area, called Agora Valley, was #1 silver, #2 Bitcoin, and #3 US dollars. Last year, it was #1 Bitcoin, then silver, then US dollars. This year, the vendor area is 3 times bigger than it was last year, and all of them will be accepting Bitcoin, even if they show up and they don't. We'll make sure of it by the time that everybody gets set up on Monday. And it'll be a lot of fun. So my prediction is PorcFest is going to be a lot of fun. The biggest Bitcoin marketplace for the longest stretch of time that we've seen yet. And it'll be more widely attended. I think it was the largest gathering of Bitcoiners last year on record, I think. At 1,300 people, I think, attended last year. So really looking forward to that. I think it's going to puncture all of those ceilings. So that's my prediction.
Very cool.
Prediction. Bitcoin in the Beltway. Bitcoin in the Beltway. Bitcoin in the Beltway will be the greatest event in Bitcoin history. The best speakers, the best events, and all within sight of the Washington Monument. We're going to have a great time. I guarantee it. But we're out of time. Until next time, bye-bye.